January 22nd, 1879. A British camp lies still beneath a strange sphinx-shaped mountain. No trenches, no walls, no warning. By sunset, over 1,300 soldiers of the most powerful empire on Earth will be dead. Not defeated, not retreated, erased. This is the story of the day Britain learned it wasn't invincible, and the empire tried for 100 years to forget it. The most disciplined fighting forces on the continent. Britain wanted that kingdom gone. Under Lieutenant General Lord Chelmsford, a British invasion force crossed into Zulu territory on January 11, 1879. They expected a quick war, a punishment expedition, a formality. They had no idea what was waiting for them. King Cetshwayo Kampande ruled the Zulu nation not as a savage, as British newspapers like to claim, but as a sovereign monarch defending his people's land. His warriors trained from boyhood. They ran barefoot across mountains to build endurance. They fought in a battle formation so effective the British would come to fear its name, the Horns of the Buffalo. A central chest to pin the enemy. 2 horns to encircle from the sides. A hidden reserve, the loins, to crush what remained. Lord Chelmsford didn't believe this mattered. He split his invading force into columns, moving fast, spreading thin. He believed the Zulu would scatter and hide. He was wrong. On January 20th, one of his columns, nearly 1,800 men, made camp at the base of a rocky hill called Isandlwana. No wagons circled for defense, no entrenchments dug. A junior officer suggested fortifying the camp. He was overruled. 2 days later, that decision would kill almost everyone there.
On the morning of January 22nd, Chelmsford took half his force out to search for the Zulu army. He never found it, because it had already found him. 20,000 Zulu warriors lay hidden in a ravine barely 2 miles from the British camp, undetected, motionless, waiting. British scouts stumbled onto them almost by accident. There was no ambush plan left, no time. King Cetshwayo had ordered his commanders not to attack that day. The moon was wrong, the omens unfavorable. It didn't matter anymore. A British scout had seen them, and a discovered army has only one choice: strike or be slaughtered. At 11 a.m., the horns of the buffalo began to open. Back at camp, the men left behind, just over 1,000 British and Colonial troops, heard something they would never forget. A sound rolling over the hills like thunder with no storm behind it. The Zulu regiments were singing their war chant as they advanced. Some British soldiers later said it was the most terrifying sound of their lives.
At first, the British held. Their rifles tore into the Zulu ranks at long range. Rows of warriors fell in the open grass. For a moment, it looked like discipline and gunpowder would win, just as it always had. Then, the ammunition began to run out. This is the detail history still argues about. Regulations required ammunition boxes to be opened with a specific screwdriver under strict quartermaster control. In the chaos, some companies couldn't get resupplied fast enough. Men who had been firing 60 rounds a minute suddenly held empty rifles. The gaps in the firing line grew wider. The horns of the buffalo, which had been creeping around both flanks for over an hour, finally closed. There was no longer a battlefield. There was only a circle tightening. Soldiers who had never expected to fight hand-to-hand suddenly found Zulu warriors inside their lines, using the fasiga, the short stabbing spear designed for exactly this moment. Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Durnford, commanding the camp's defense, fought until his ammunition and his men were gone. He died holding his ground, refusing to retreat. Trooper Barker, a survivor, later said, I saw the very earth seem to rise up and come at us. By 2:30 in the afternoon, less than 3 hours after it began, the battle was over. Of the roughly 1,700 men in and around the camp, more than 1,300 lay dead. Entire companies of British regulars, men trained, drilled, and armed with the finest rifle in the world, had been wiped out almost to the last man. It was the worst defeat inflicted on a modern colonial army by an indigenous force in the 19th century.
But the story doesn't end at Isandlwana. That same afternoon, roughly 6 miles away, a Zulu reserve force of 4,000 warriors, the men held back from the main battle, moved to attack a tiny British outpost. It was a supply depot, a hospital, a mission station converted into a fort. Its name was Rorke's Drift. It had fewer than 150 defenders. Many were sick or wounded. They had hours, not days, to prepare, barricading doors, stacking biscuit boxes into walls, waiting for an army 25 times their size. What happened next became legend. Through an entire night, the garrison at Rorke's Drift held. Wave after wave of Zulu attacks broke against improvised barricades. Soldiers fought room to room, building to building, in fires and darkness, refusing to break. By morning, the Zulu withdrew. 11 Victoria Crosses, the most ever awarded for a single action in British military history, were given for that night. The Empire needed a story to tell. Rorke's Drift became that story. Printed in every newspaper, painted in every gallery, celebrated for generations. Isandlwana, the true measure of what had happened, was quietly folded into the background. Britain had been humiliated in the morning, and by nightfall it had already begun rewriting the memory.
Isandlwana shook the empire to its core. News reached London by telegraph, and the public reaction was disbelief, then fury. Questions were asked in Parliament. Careers ended. Lord Chelmsford's reputation never recovered. Reinforcements poured into southern Africa. Britain returned 5 months later with overwhelming force, determined to erase the humiliation. At the Battle of Ulundi in July 1879, they burned Cetshwayo's royal capital and crushed the Zulu Kingdom's independence for good. But something couldn't be undone. The myth of British invincibility, the idea that discipline and rifles made empire unstoppable, had been broken in a single afternoon, on a hillside beneath a mountain shaped like a crouching sphinx. Today, white stone cairns still mark where British soldiers fell, scattered across the hillside like a broken necklace. Zulu oral tradition remembers this differently, not as a massacre, as a defense, as the day a nation defending its home defeated an empire that believed it could not lose.
Empires like to tell stories about their own invincibility. Isandlwana is the story that got away from them. It didn't end the British Empire, but it proved in a single bloody afternoon that empire was never inevitable, and that the outcome of any battle, no matter how one-sided it appears, is never truly written until the last shot is fired. That is why, nearly 150 years later, we still say its name, Isandlwana, the battle that proved Britain could be beaten